Can't have that buzzing now, can we? That screws everything up all the time. That screws up everything all the time. It sure does. And we don't like that stuff. Hello, everyone. New way of doing things. So if you're tuning in just now, see this clock right over here? We're going to let that run. And as soon as that gets to 0, we go to story time. So if you're watching this and you want to fast forward to story time, go right ahead. Follow that clock. It'll take you right to where you need to go. Do got to adjust this a little bit, though. That was my huge, massive guns adjusting my microphones. Gosh, that looks terrible. Looking terrible as again, you guys. It is the craziest thing how this color changes literally every time. Hello, Steve. Hello, Daryl. Hello, Sean. Like literally every friggin' time it changes. It's just bonkers. There's put a little color in the face. There you go. That looks pretty good. Sharpness, contrast. Can't have the contrast too high because contrast, watch this. Crazy contrast. Yeah, see? It's a little bonkers. A little bit bonkers. Got more of a soft appearance here. All right. How are we doing? Good. I got everything up. I can hear myself good. Get this positioned correctamundo. Should be all right. Should be fantastic. Good to go. All right, everybody. Close this. Scott Aitken, how you doing? Martin Evans, what's up, everybody? Pam Weber, it was kind of a max headroom. We also have another setting where it's called, I'm not going to look it up, but there's aperture priority and there's some other priorities. If it's not aperture priority, it makes me look like this all the time. Hello, Richard. How you doing? Nell Zone McClintock. Mitch Hansen. How you doing, buddy? Nice to have you here. All right. Once again, if you are coming in late or scrolling through, when we get to 0 over here, we go right to story time. So if you want to hear my blabber, you can. It's lovely blabber. Some say it's the best blabber. If you don't want to hear the blabber, then you just go to the zeros and have at it. There you go. Let's see. Tonight is a live read of Slay episode 70 titled Home Field Advantage. After this episode, only 2 episodes left in Slay Season 2. And then we're probably going to have 1, maybe 2 Slay Q&A episodes. So what you want to do is you want to email your questions to info@emptyset. Give questions about Slay Season 1, Slay Season 2, where things are going. I won't spoil things, but you can send in your email. And when we do the Q&A session, your question could probably be read live on the air, and I'll be responding to it. A real girl herself collects all of the questions, reads the questions to me. I don't see any of the questions before we actually go live. So you'll hear yourself in the podcast, and you might very well see yourself right here. Back to opening. Sorry, I forgot to do that bit right there. Again, got the clock cooking along. Yes, tonight is Slay episode number 70. And after the read, we're going to record a live episode of Deep Cuts, our bonus content for the Scott Sigler Slices feed. We'll talk about the challenges of being a modern day writer. Hint, it's not just about typing words anymore. Very good. Virginia, how you doing? David Carter, welcome. Yeah, I'm glad it sounds good. Nick Ladd just learned about an insect by the name of the Malaysian deadleaf mantis. It looks very crazy and siglerific. That is a fantastic insect. It is so friggin' cool. One of the coolest insects out there. Plus, a real girl herself and I just learned about a new game coming out for PlayStation called, I think it's called Kingdom of Ants or Ant Kingdom for PS5. And I can't wait. I love ants. I almost went into entomology when I was a Utes. And we're going to play that game together. Should be a lot of fun. Big Nasty's in the house. How you doing? Oh, look, a real girl herself in the house right now. She great. Okay. No Rob Otto tonight. He is in Sheboygan because one of the linchpins of our childhood up in Sheboygan, Michigan, passed away. Sandra Christian, whose house largely, let me go back to Maine real quick. This is the name of the friend group, the Armchair Lodge, because I think it was at Ma Christian's where, those little covers you put on armrests? At some point, we were in high school. Somebody picked one of those up, put it on their noggin, and it looked like a hat people in a lodge would wear. So we therefore dubbed ourselves the Armchair Lodge. And Rob Otto is up north because Scott Christian, who is a member of the Armchair Lodge, his mother passed away this week. And I had just been in Sheboygan 2 weeks ago. So I was unable to go back to Sheboygan for the service for Sandra Christian. And that is a bummer, but that's kind of how it goes. It's very expensive to travel across country and all those other things. But Rob Otto is up north with Scott Christian right now. Up north means up north in northern Michigan. And our buddy Jeff Rappelgee is there. Dr. Daniel Baker, PhD, is out on vacation on a cruise, so he can't be there. But I will be drinking a drink in honor of Sandra tonight as soon as I'm done with the read. Hail, Sandra. Always serving us up cube cheese and pickled bologna every time. And I would always eat the pickled bologna because it looks so good. I love bologna. And I would look at it and I'd be like, gosh, that looks fantastic. And the second I would take a bite of the pickled bologna, I remembered over and over again that I hate pickled bologna. And it became True Death Alchemist just only found out about me in the last 4 weeks. Welcome. Everybody give True Death Alchemist a big old welcome. Let's go back to the opening. You guys can see that. I believe everybody can see Scott Pond in the house. What's up, dog? I hope you are doing well, my friend. Hello, Edward Rocco. But anyways, it became this great game with my friends, including Jeff Rappelgee, who I said is up at the services right now, that Ma Christian would come in with this really little high squeaky voice like, "Hi, boys, I brought you some bologna and cheese," and would always set it down. And they would always be like, Scott, you got to try the pickled bologna. Maybe you like it now. I'm like, I don't like it. You guys can go to hell. Scott, look at it. It's just bologna. You probably get used to the taste. It looks so good. And literally every time for 4 years of D&D, almost every weekend, I would try the goddamn pickled bologna and I would hate it. And I was stupid in high school. So there you go. Oh my gosh. True Death Alchemist says, "You are my favorite author. I've only just found you through the podcast a month ago and have binged all your stuff. Needless to say, I have Sigler on the brain." You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is a proper, intelligent person. Clearly. Lots of brains, lots of common sense. Like all of you here understand the way things should be. So welcome, True Death. Everybody say hey to him. And we're here every Wednesday, almost without fail, even when we're on vacation. So join us every Wednesday for the live read. And then what happens here goes into the podcast feed. All right. I'll repeat it one more time. Anybody who came in a little late, we got a new way of doing the show. When this clock hits 0, we go right into the story. So that means if you come in and you don't want to hear the blabber, you're in a hurry, you just want to get to the story, you fast forward to the zeros and you are your own heroes. Let's see what else we got coming up. That is about it. Don't forget, Slay Q&A episodes coming up, so you can send your questions to info@emptyset.com. There it is at the bottom of the screen. We will probably read those questions live when we finish Slay. So we'll have 2 live episodes of Slay Q&A. So get those questions in. All right, let's go ahead and get ready to go. Oh my God, so much violence in this one, you guys. It's excellent. Let's just go ahead and start recording now, and then I can figure this out. Boom. We are recording. Hide that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go to main. Let's get rid of all of our timers. Let's go ahead and get ready to rumble. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Previously on... Screwed up right out of the gate. Hold on, you guys. There we go. Ready? Here we go. One more time. Previously on Slay. Lincoln, Billy, Sophia, Kellius Droman, and Morganstone are all in the ancient cell block that is the lair of Teddy Two Fingers. Billy, Droman, and Morgan faced off against a spider-bodied Haimana and her horde of insects. Haimana has had years to prepare for this duel to the death with Droman. Can Billy and Morgan tilt the scales? Lincoln and Sophia are separated from the others. They must push forward. Will they survive this day? Teddy Two Fingers is on the run, looking for a way to escape the wrath of Delilah Droman. She's using dreamgaunts to control her fellow captives and to use their innate magical powers as instruments of retribution. Season 2 is almost complete. Who lives? Who dies? Find out next on Slay, episode 70. They reached the end of the cell block. Lincoln was about to open that door and see what came next when Sophia raised a hand. "Someone's coming," she said. "Get ready." Lincoln heard the noise a second after his sister did. Maybe 2 seconds. 2-second delays got you killed. Was her hearing that much better than his? Or was he a wee bit out of it? As in, 3 shots of Nini out of it. Many feet treading on a stone floor. The rattle of weapons and gear. Sophia moved back down the 10-foot wide corridor, used a thick open cell door on the left-hand side for cover. She reached inside her cloak, not into the folds, but to a clamshell quiver she wore angled across her back. A quiver that held arrows tight, their fletching near her hip. It was perfect for the close confines of this place. She wasn't relying on her cloak to store anything. So like her, to come properly equipped with gear that fit the mission. She probably had a checklist in her pocket somewhere with all the to-dos she'd brainstormed before heading to the clearinghouse. Meticulous. That was the word for Sophia Franks. One of the words, anyway. She had more going for her than Lincoln could ever hope to have. Sophia drew 6 arrows, held 3 in her left hand along with the bow, 3 in her right, her draw hand, those notched between her fingers like long claws. Lincoln moved to an open door on the right. He drew his Kel-Tec PMR-30 pistol and stood a few feet behind an open cell door, only a sliver of his gun arm exposed. In his other hand, he held Bastard Maker. The noise increased. "Remember to check your targets," Sophia said. "Don't put Teddy down. We need him." At any other time, that obvious observation might have pissed him off. But not now. He didn't quite feel himself. And when it came to Sam, to any chance of getting his son off the shelf, Lincoln would take all the reminders he could get. The door at the corridor's end opened outward. Thuengulls poured in. Lizard-like skin the color of dead fish. Long mouths with lips pulled back in angry sneers to reveal jagged yellow teeth. More body armor and tactical gear than a mall ninja militia. Oh, and expensive assault rifles. Lots of them. Sophia shot first, pulling back the string while also pushing the bow forward, drawing barely past halfway before loosing and notching the next arrow, so blindingly fast, she launched 3 shafts down the corridor in half a second. 2 throat shots, 1 left eye, and 3 Thuengulls were falling, the others massed behind them, tripping over their bodies. Lincoln unloaded with his pistol, aiming for abdomen and groin shots to hit just below body armor, emptying his 30-round mag in less time than it took his heart to complete 3 beats. He moved right, only needing to take a half step to be fully covered by the door. Mag drop, new mag in. He heard multiple Thuengulls crying out, heard the thwack, thwack, thwack of Sophia's bowstring. Then he heard assault rifles opening up. Bullets pounded into the iron door, denting it, punching through it. Lincoln ducked, leaned out just enough to see the left side of the corridor. 3 down Thuengulls in sight, 2 more stepping over them. They saw him, aimed, fired with undisciplined wildness. He put 3 rounds in each crotch. As they dropped, howling, he wondered if they were boy Thuengulls or girl Thuengulls. "Hey, Franks," a voice called out. "Welcome to my house. I got something for you." Agnetha. Lincoln saw movement above, something arcing past his door to bounce lightly on the stone floor even as a second object flew past. "Grenade!" he called as he dove into the open cell. Explosive hell filled the corridor. First 1 grenade detonating, then a second, a 1-2 blast of concussive air. Shrapnel caught him from behind, plinking off his armor. A firebrand sting in the back of his right knee. He landed, tried to tuck in a roll, but his balance was off. He slammed hard against the stone shitter, his ears ringing. Sophia. Lincoln was up, ignoring the pain but limping all the same. He edged out of the cell, using the door as a shield. Orange claws whipped down at his face. He ducked back as the claws tore gouges in the iron door. He pressed his pistol into a gouge and started pulling the trigger, angling the Kel-Tec slightly with each shot. In the middle of emptying the magazine, he heard Agnetha cry out. Lincoln reared back, kicked the door, hoping to smash it into his enemy, but it slammed against the wall, missing her. She stood there, her left ear a bloody mess, her orange claws reaching almost to the floor, her centipede arm writhing, red blood dripping from a trio of holes in its long body. She slashed at him, keeping the centipede curled up close to her chest like a knockout punch waiting for an opening. Link whipped Bastard Maker in short arcs, knocking her claw strikes aside, the mesh of her claws holding firm against the edge of his hatchet. Thwack, thwack, thwack. An arrow hit Agnetha's right thigh, a second bounced off the side of her breastplate, and a third would have skewered her temple if she hadn't flinched back. That arrow grazed her forehead, opening a long gash before it embedded in the stone wall. Sophia, firing from inside the cell she'd used as cover from the grenades. She moved to step out of the cell, one hand reaching for a punch dagger. Agnetha kicked Sophia's cell door closed, the rusted iron smashing into her and knocking her back. Lincoln moved in, raising Bastard Maker to plunge the blade into Agnetha's blood-sheeted face. He swung. The strike felt slow. Agnetha leaned away. The hatchet blade bounced off her armored shoulder. Still moving forward, Lincoln drove his forehead into Agnetha's nose, crunching bone and driving her backward. She fell to her ass. Sophia's cell door flew open. She stepped out, drawing her bow. Just as she loosed, Agnetha's centipede arm shot up and out. Poison-dripping fangs snapped shut, curved points piercing the sides of Sophia's neck. Sophia stiffened, dropped her bow. Lincoln whipped his axe down on the centipede arm, slicing it in 2. Hundreds of thick black legs squirmed and kicked and spasmed in agony. Sophia slumped into the open cell. Lincoln turned toward Agnetha, raising his hatchet to deliver the killing blow, but that work was done. She lay on her back, Sophia's arrow buried so deep in her right eye that the fletching almost reached her eyebrow. Agnetha did not move. Lincoln rushed into the cell. The severed centipede head's pincers remained in Sophia's neck, spasming tighter and looser, pumping poison into her body. Lincoln dropped his hatchet, grabbed the pincers, and ripped them free. He tossed the severed head aside, knelt by his sister. "Sophia, Talk to me. She looked at him, her eyes dilated, her breathing coming fast. Her mouth moved, clumsy and confused, but no words came out. Lincoln had never seen a bite like this before, never dealt with a creature like the centipede, but he had seen enough mortal wounds to know his sister would be dead in minutes if he didn't help her. But how? He didn't know what to do. He tapped his temple, tapped it hard. Mags, are you there? I need you. A ghostly centipede the size of LeBron James flew at Billy's face, fangs spread wide. Billy jammed his stubby shotgun barrel into the hard flesh between those fangs just as they snapped with crocodile intensity, their points missing his eyes by inches. He pulled the trigger, winced against the cold goo that splattered his face. The monster curled away, shuddering, gelatinous stuff streaming from the new hole in the top of its head, one pincer flopping like it was barely attached. The creature hit the stone floor, body writhing, hundreds of legs stuttering, hundreds of wings flapping in useless spurts. Billy sensed more than saw another monster on his right, coming fast, hissing as it bore through the dim green light. He turned, pulling back on the shotgun slide handle to rack around, knew he wouldn't make it in time. A flash of steel arced down, 2 feet of razor sharpness severing the striking centipede's head. The head passed to Billy's right, the shuddering body to his left. The arc of goop stretched between them hit him like a water balloon. He quick wiped his face with the back of his hand, clutched his shotgun, which was also soaked in bug guts. Morganstone turned away from him, her naginata whipping into a keg-sized beetle. But the creature kept coming, blood streaming from its flank. Billy put the shotgun barrel to its head and blew its face clean off. "This shit is fucked up," he screamed. "We gotta get out of here." Haimana's insane laugh echoed off the stone walls, filled the room with sadistic glee. "I love it," she called out, her voice husky and seductive. "Keep fighting, keep fighting." Billy and Morgan stood back to back, her solidity a tiny shred of comfort in this madhouse of death. All around them, the corpses of a dozen giant insects, still twitching sickly, writhing in puddles of goop that gleamed like molten black metal in Droman's green light. More of the big tank beetles crept in around the corpses, thousands of pounds of huge mass and armored chitin. Flying centipedes buzzed overhead, serpentining through the high darkness. The crack of stone splitting. Tendrils of some long extinct, crusty tree pushed through that crack, curling and thickening as they rose. Kellius Droman grabbed one, let it pull him into the air as a pair of beetles dove for him, missed him, smashed into each other instead. "Haimana!" he screamed. "Bring me my daughter or die where you stand!" His amulet glowed with the intensity of an emerald nova, briefly flooding the gymnasium-sized room with a blinding light that lit up the huge spider witch in an intense glow, casting a long, 8-legged shadow. Haimana smiled wide, her red rictus lips pulling back, exposing white teeth that glimmered like green jewels. Her eyes gleamed with psychotic lust. Her swollen spider body slowly dipped up and down, an arachnid boxer calmly watching her foe before the real blows started flying. "Delilah is not your daughter anymore, my master." The bug witch spit the last word like it was made of rusty razors laced with poison. "She belongs to me now. You could have had us both, Kellius. One family, together, but you cast me aside. Billy remembered Magda's training. He pulled shells from his holster strap, fed them into his shotgun. He tilted his head back as he did. "Morgan, what's this crazy bitch talking about?" "Not now," Morgan said. "It's not important." The tone in her voice told Billy it was very important, just not at the moment. "This is your last chance, Haimana," Droman said. "Your last chance for my mercy, or I will pull you limb from limb." Long, thick, crusty spider legs brought the grinning madwoman closer. "Do your best, Kellius. Do your best." The rising roots carried Droman higher. He raised his free hand, a hand that suddenly writhed with glowing vines crackling with iridescent lightning. "So be it," he said. "Now you will learn what it means to challenge me." He reared back as if to throw the lightning vines. His light suddenly pulsed on and off, a sputtering, on its way out neon light of the gods so intense Billy's eyes squinted to slits. The wavering branch Droman held snapped, broke free. He dropped 15 feet to the stone floor, the vines trailing him like fading comets. He hit hard, meat slapping against stone. "Kellius!" Morgan screamed. She ran to him, using her naginata to vault over the ring of bugs, leaving Billy alone in the closing insectile circle. Oh, fuck that. He sprinted after Morgan, putting a round in a beetle's head. Another beetle sprang for him, pincers as long as his forearms snapping forward. Billy reacted without thinking, grabbing one of the pincers, turning as he moved, whipping the heavy beast in a wide arc, throwing it up into a centipede that dove for Billy's head. The two insects smashed together, dropped to the floor. Morgan knelt next to Droman, whose face scrunched in agony. "Well, well, well," Haimana said, as she steadily came closer. "Your assistant seems upset, Kellius. I guess I'm not the only assistant you put your cock in. Morgan, did he tell you he loved you like he did with me?" Billy racked another round, thumbed another shell into the shotgun. The big bugs were closing in, slowly, as if waiting for a signal from Haimana. Droman had banged Haimana? Was Billy about to die because of some fucked up lover's drama? Well, hopefully Haimana didn't look like this when Droman hooked up with her. Nasty. Morgan stood, naginata in one hand, her other stretched out toward the 10-foot-tall monstrosity. Long white hair whipped this way and that, driven by a sudden wind. "I am not as powerful as you are," Morgan said, shouting to be heard over her wind. "But I have more than enough to tear your head from that abomination of a body." Haimana reared up, 4 legs on the floor, 4 legs waving in the air, her head some 12 feet high. "Go ahead, girl," she said. "Give it your best shot. But are you a girl, though? It's hard to tell. Maybe Kellius didn't put his cock in you. Maybe you put yours in him." The psycho turned her head, looked at Billy. "How about you, fire boy? Did Master Kellius get you all naked and sweaty too?" The wind whipped up. Morgan's rage was growing. Billy could sense it. He could see it in her. He could see Haimana's filaments, too, a mad swarm of them swirling within her body. Haimana?" Billy said. Can I call you Haimana? Maybe this ain't the time to talk about people's sex lives. I mean, that's private stuff, you know. Where people put their bits ain't my business. And I gotta say, I don't think your homophobic tobe is all that appropriate. Live and let live. Am I right? Haimana's smile lessened, then grew wider than ever. I like you, she said. Was she quoting that old Schwarzenegger movie? Right, Billy said. So you're going to kill me last. I will kill you second, Haimana said. After Morgan, so I can make Kellius watch as my pets feast on your flesh. Billy glanced around at the approaching insect horde. Maybe we got different opinions of what I like you means, he said. 'Cause having big-ass magic bugs feast on my flesh sure don't sound like you like me, you know? Morgan gripped her naginata with both hands and thrust the blade toward Haimana. A madly whipping tornado spun from the weapon and engulfed the towering bug witch. Teddy reached the corner, slowed, pointed at 2 of his 4 remaining Thu'ungulls. You 2 stay here, he said. Shoot anything that comes down this corridor. You 2, come with me. The 2 mercs he'd assigned to man the corridor looked at each other, doubt in their lizard eyes, but Teddy didn't wait to see if they obeyed. He sprinted down the corridor, the 2 he'd ordered to stay by his side, close at his heels. Get to the room, throw a few treasures in his bag, open the secret door, and get the fuck out of Dodge. How could Delilah have so much power? She was just a kid. Teddy knew he had messed up, forgetting that semi-powerful 9 or 10-year-olds he'd acquired, like Antony and Panda, had grown stronger while in captivity, their innate filament blossoming, magnifying as they lay gaunted and near comatose. All right, no one was perfect. Teddy had whiffed on that rather obvious detail, his own overconfidence lulling him into complacency. Sure, but as powerful as those teens were now, Delilah was on another level altogether. And she was only 13. What would she be like when she was 20, 25? Teddy wasn't going to wait around and find out. His business was toast. He wasn't going to start over, not with Dreamweaver Delilah out there somewhere. She would be looking for him, hunting him. And if she found him, every time he went to sleep, she would be there. Teddy heard the bass-heavy howl of wind coursing through the corridors. Morgan Stone? Was she here? No. He'd forgotten about another of his workers growing older, growing stronger. Mata Casinativa, 8 years old when he'd taken her, now 14. Storms were her loom. Teddy's hair rose up, charged with sudden static electricity. Then he heard and felt a deafening blast of thunder, followed by the dying howls of the mercs he'd left at the corner. Dust streamed down from the ceiling, shaken free by the thunder's concussive blow. The howling wind brought with it the smell of burned flesh. Teddy ran harder. His room was just ahead on the right. You 2, guard the door, he said. Don't let anyone in. One of his last 2 mercenaries ran past him. Screw that, the Thu'ungull said. Get us out of here. Teddy drew his sword without breaking stride, drove the point into the base of the reptilian's skull, and pulled it back in one fast, smooth motion. The Thu'ungull fell. Teddy hopped over the limp body, landed in his doorway, turned and pointed the sword tip at the throat of his last mercenary, who skidded to a halt, staring down at the gleaming, blood-smeared metal. You guard this door, Teddy said. Do so, and I will take you with me. The Thuengol looked up. Yes, sir, Mr. Two Fingers. The merc's eyes narrowed as he turned, aimed its rifle down the corridor. That was the last decision the poor bastard ever made. And it was a bad one. The Thuengol shuddered once, dropped the rifle to the floor. He raised his gray-skinned hands toward his head as if to cover his eyes, but if that was the intent, it was too late. Both eyes burst, blood jetting out of them, and out of its nostrils and out of his mouth. In the scant seconds Teddy stood there, watching, frozen for an instant, he remembered another worker's loom, one of his top 10 he'd intended to use to restart his business. That kid, Ji Wang Yu, who had dreamed of his beloved dog drowning over and over again. Ji Yang's loom, blood magic. The Thuengol collapsed like a bag of bones wrapped in canvas. Teddy ran into his room, suffering a slice of sadness that he couldn't take his guitars, his amp, his memorabilia from his rock god in waiting days. All he had to do was get the secret door open and seal it behind him. Teddy shoved his beloved Bumble amp aside. He slid his body behind the tapestry. On the wall, hidden spots that only he knew. A press here, then there, then finally there. The narrow, hidden door groaned open, swinging inward. The gray-green swirls blocked much of the image on the screen, but Magda could make out Sophia's bulging, confused eyes and her swollen neck. Magda, are you there? Can you hear me? Panic in Link's voice, from a man who never panicked. Well, almost never. Magda had heard that staccato, urgent tone before, when she'd been bleeding out after the Umatakan tore her to pieces. I'm here, Magda said, keeping her voice steady and level. What's Sophia's situation? Help me, Link said. Ariella shook her head. He's losing it. I couldn't hear him. He's breaking. Ariella, silence, Magda said. Link, repeat all you said after me. Link, repeat all after help me. She could only hope Lincoln heard her clearly. I said she got bit by Agnetha's centipede. She's dying. Sophia had gone through Rixator training 2 years before Lincoln and Magda had. Magda knew Sophia well. Knew she believed in every aspect of Rixator training, including the rules about proper kit, what to take with, what to leave behind. Rules that Magda had often skirted, rules that Link all but ignored. Sophia Franks always came prepared. Link knew this. He wasn't thinking straight because it was his sister at death's door. On the screen, Sophia's eyes started to flutter closed. Magda could hear her tortured, wheezing breaths. Link, chill, Magda said. Be cool and you can save her. Your sister always... Don't tell me to goddamn be cool. Tell me what I can... Lincoln Emmanuel Franks. Calm the fuck down. Magda knew him, knew her scream, and using his full name could cut through. They were running out of time, if it wasn't too late already. Link didn't speak. Sophia always does things by the book, Magda said. She's probably got standard healing mesh on her. Be cool and find it. On the screen, Lincoln started digging through Sophia's cloak, almost punching it with intensity of searching within the folds. Not her cloak, Magda said, low and steady, fighting hard to not yell at him again. She knew the cloak might not work. She probably put everything on her body, on her armor, just like you. Magda's words trailed off as the swirls expanded, spread across the screen, blocking out the image of Sophia. Link? Magda stood. Link! Can you hear me, Link? There was no answer. I hope he heard you, Ariella said. Magda dropped back down to the couch, and she stared at the screen. Lincoln searched his sister's armor. Everything she would have kept in the cloak, she had strapped to herself, just like he had. As Magda suspected, Sophia had every last bit of gear on her as if she was a rookie Rixator out on her first mission. Sophia's whistling breathing grew fainter. He couldn't find the vial. Link turned her over, whipped the cloak out of the way. There, in a vial holster at the small of her back, a small, oh-so-familiar tube of soupy pink gel. He pulled it out, laid her flat on her back. He opened the vial, stuck his pinky inside, felt the mesh's unique tingle. He smeared gel on both bite marks, then shook the vial's contents into her open mouth. He rubbed her throat to help her swallow. Her neck was so swollen. Sophia stopped breathing. Her eyes stared out, lifeless and blank. She couldn't be dead. She couldn't be. Sophia, come on. Come on. He should have known she would have the healing mesh on her. He should have known. How had he missed that? If he had thought of it right away, it would have given her a better chance. Sophia, please. She didn't move. Was she dead? Her pulse. Check her pulse. Lincoln pulled off her gauntlet, grabbed her wrist, felt for the telltale sign of life. Was it there? No. Yes. Faint, but there. He could still. Sophia sat up like a switchblade, heaving in a breath. Soph, I'm here. Lincoln grabbed her shoulders, steadied her, tried to get her to look him in the eyes. It's okay. She convulsed. A jet of thick yellow bile laced with neon pink shot out of her mouth and onto his face and chest. Lincoln closed his eyes and turned his head, but he didn't let her go. He heard her retch a second time, and another stream of spew splashed him. What little strength she had left abandoned her. She sagged in Lincoln's arms. That sucked, she said. The healing mesh had saved her. She was alive. Exhausted, drained, barely able to speak, but alive. Lincoln, you stink. What's all over you? Don't worry about it. Okay. Agnetha, she dead? Yep, Lincoln said. You got her just as she got you. Sophia tried to nod, winced in pain. My neck hurts. You got bit by a centipede arm. Oh, no wonder then. She weakly pushed away from him. Where's Teddy? She got to her hands and knees, tried to rise. Lincoln started to help her. She slapped his hand away. Where's Delilah? The other kids? Don't know, Lincoln said. I was kind of busy making sure he didn't die. And if she had died, he knew it would have been his fault. Because he had panicked. Because he had drank right before the shit was about to hit the fan. And in truth, he was still drunk. Well, I didn't die. She used the cell wall to push herself to a standing position. This is all we need. She unclasped her cloak, then, with effort, swung it around his shoulders. This is all we want. She sealed the clasp at his neck. This is all we are. Sophia was so weak she could barely stand, but she was a Rixator. Maybe she couldn't go on, but she could still take care of herself. Good Lord, but was she a badass. Go get Teddy, man in gray, Sophia said. Make him tell you how to get Samuel back. The cloak was a little short for Lincoln, and in far better condition than his own, but that didn't matter. What mattered was he felt whole again. Lincoln embraced his sister, hugged her tight. Then he picked up Bastard Maker. Limping from the shrapnel in his right knee, he stepped over the severed centipede head and out into the corridor, the gray cloak flowing behind him. Delilah Droman walked through blood. Ji Yong-woo stood outside the open door. A regular door, not a cell door, although this door was very old, just like the walls around it. The gaunt covering Ji's face twitched and oozed. It was trying to get away. Delilah wouldn't let it. As long as it was there, she controlled Ji like a puppet, could use his power as if he was a game and she was the controller. Could use his power as if he was a game and she held the controller. Ji raised one arm, pointed through the open door. Delilah willed the gaunted line workers to follow her. So much power in them. In the 8 who remained anyway, Thuengol bullets had killed 2. Those Thuengols were dead. They couldn't pay for the murders. But Teddy could. Delilah stepped over the bag of bones and operator gear that had been a Thuengol before Ji fire hosed the blood out of its body. She stepped into the room. Teddy wasn't there. So this was the throne room of his castle. Posters of himself. Guitars, 16 of them. Heavy tapestries, one with what might be a guitar amplifier in front of it, set at an angle. A big stereo. Was that a CD player? And a rack of CDs? Delilah had never seen those in real life before. A bed, far nicer than the jail cots Delilah and the others slept in. A shag rug in the center of the room. Candle stands with half-melted candles. A small table and 4 chairs. Teddy's room was twice the size of any cell, yet, in the end, it had been a prison all the same. Delilah sensed the others coming in behind her, spreading out. She felt them through their gaunts. She would remove the gaunts soon, but not quite yet. These kids didn't know their own power potential the way she did. When the gaunts came off, these kids would go mental. She needed their powers more than she needed them. That amplifier, tan and scuffed, with a crisscross fabric on the front that hid the speaker. It was on little black wheels. Wheels that had made faint, arcing divots in the shag rug. As if someone had just pulled it out, then moved it back into place. Delilah pulled the amp outward, then looked behind the tapestry. Was there a secret door? If so, she had an easy way of finding out. She ripped the tapestry down. She backed away, pulling the heavy thing with her. She pointed to the blank space. Antony, bring that wall down. Antony the phony, the left leg of his jeans soaked and dark with piss, the gaunt on his face desperate to get away from him, its many-knuckled fingers twitching and squirming. Antony the phony, whose loom was rocks and minerals. He raised his hands, curled his fingers in like clutching claws. The false door crumbled outward. Solid 1 second, a pile of rocks and painted concrete the next. A narrow tunnel leading into darkness. Had Delilah got here in time? Mata, Delilah said. Teddy is in there. Draw the air out of that tunnel hard enough to drag him out. Hard enough to drag him to me. Mata stepped closer, her gaunt fighting hard, pulling away from her face, out of her eyes and ears and nose and mouth. With the smallest of thoughts, Delilah put an end to that. The gaunt re-clutched Mata's head, clung to her face like a second skin. An oozing, trembling, bulbous second skin. Now, Mata, Delilah said, do it. Mata Kasantiva spread her feet, then she spread her arms. Cold air shot out of the tunnel, an instant whirlwind so forceful it made Delilah's yukata pull tight to her, rattle against her skin. Teddy's posters ripped from the walls. Candle stands toppled, as did guitars which landed flat on strings that rang and choked musical pain. The blankets and sheets ripped off his bed like great, flat ghosts. Through that tumultuous, cacophonous noise, the almost deafening roar, Delilah heard two things. She heard something not that far away sliding through the darkness toward her. And she heard Teddy Two Fingers screaming. Something black and flapping shot out of the tunnel, drawn by the wind. Delilah stepped back, startled, but she saw what it was. Teddy's black leather jacket skidded across the floor, wrapped around a foot of his bed. Mata's storm was so strong, it had pulled the coat right off him. Delilah squinted her eyes against the gale, peered down the tunnel. Just coming into view now, drawn inexorably by the wind, dragged by it, was Delilah's boss, screaming, his white hair whipping this way and that, his bloody fingertips grabbing at stone walls, scraping against the stone floor. It was almost time. Almost time. Make sure I got this set up here, you guys, and boop, save. There you go. One big episode left. Then we have the epilogue. Oh boy, what do you think's going to happen next week? It's going to be nuts. It's going to be bonkers up in here. Baby, come on up whenever you like. Okay, make sure A's headphones are ready to go. Let's get A's microphone on. Girthy but great. Yeah, it's very long. It's 2 5,000-word episodes in a row. That's the way things go, man. Yeah, she's 13. She's never seen a CD, you guys. Sorry. Never, or a CD player. That's the way it goes. All right, scrolling back through the chat. Scott says, what an episode. Awesome. Virginia says, that was sweet. And, we get that weird, the echo is unavoidable in this room, frankly. There's no way around it, but it's just the way it is. I don't know if you guys can hear the echo. I can hear the echo. It's not really an echo. It's more of A's mic picks up the whole room. So A's going to come on up, and we are going to go ahead and Ian Sickle says, I'm putting my money on a big reconciliation. They all make s'mores. I'll take that bet. Is that fair if I take that bet? Whoops. Is that fair if I take that bet? I don't know. However, when we went to Michigan and with a real girl herself who's coming in right now, she made s'mores and she got me Reese's peanut butter cups to put in the s'mores. So my s'mores were Reese's peanut butter cups, which I love. and it was great. It's awesome. Virginia said that was sweet. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's really fun. Thank you. Thank you. Edward Rocco says bravo. Pam Weber says almost time. Come on, babe. You can hit that fan, turn that fan on. That was a really good time, you guys. That was really good. I had a couple more flubs than I would have liked, but overall, I think that went pretty good. Oh, thanks, honey bunny. Okay. Everybody, look who it is. Yeah. And now I will turn it off so we don't get it every time I accidentally turn on the camera. Okay, let's go ahead and go to, this lighting is just crazy, dude. I can't figure it out. Clap, 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 clap. David Lamb asks, what comes after Slay? Well, we're not sure yet, frankly. Let me get this, see if I can get this dialed in here. Hey, baby, how you doing?
Good. Is my mic on?
Should be on, yeah.
Testing. Hello, guys. How are you?
What did you think of the episode, Pumpkin?
It's exciting. It's there's a lot of not jump scares, but I don't read them ahead of time, so I was kind of biting my nails a little bit there.
That's the way we like to do it. Like to have most of the time she listens to the episodes fresh, and that it gives us kind of a bit of market testing, if you will. You guys are listening, but she's listening too. So sometimes we'll catch things like, hey, you kind of lost track of this thing right here. But the reason I say test is because in the moment, if she doesn't notice anything, then nobody else is going to notice anything either, right?
Yeah, and I think we have that in a couple of ways. Rob and Scott write together, so Rob is the last person to see it before the final edit. No, I guess he reads the final edit too. He sends it back to you with all of his edits and comments and
No,
stuff.
he doesn't read the final edit.
Okay.
Kevin Mess in the house.
Hey, Kevin.
What's up, Kevin?
And then I don't see any of the manuscript. And then I also think, and you guys, if you were on Facebook, you saw it today, Steve, who is our audio engineer, he will note some things. Like if you say, I don't know, you say keytar instead of guitar, and
Yep.
he'll note that as well. So there's a couple of little stops there. But then the manuscript, when it's finished next week,
2 weeks.
2 weeks,
2 weeks.
we'll go through a traditional edit, all the things.
Yeah, still there's still gonna be changing stuff. So we that ran long, obviously. So I'll see if I can adjust the brightness in a second. But let's get through our housekeeping. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, coming up in August, Steve the Iceberg Ricky Berg's Junkie Party is August 3rd, 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can find that link over at bit.ly/junkies party. It'll take you right to the page on the site. So write that down if you want to join, BYOB, and that can be beverage or beer, anything you want.
Beverage or beer? Beer is not a beverage?
I mean, it can be an alcoholic beverage or a non-alcoholic beverage, what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough.
Throw a text to us. SIG text to 855-955-5095 because you are going to be on our SMS list, which is awesome, and you're going to get a coupon code if you're not already on that list. Again, if you have questions, you want to email those to info@emptyset. If you have ideas for deep cuts, you want to send those to info@emptyset. And if you have questions for the Slay Season 2 Q&A episode, you're going to want to email those to info@emptyset.com.
And I noticed when I was watching in the chat room, we have a handful of new folks tonight. There was a pretty high watch count tonight. And so if you're new because you're enjoying Slay and you haven't ever done a Q&A, you can send any question you want. It doesn't have to be about Slay. It can be about anything you want to ask Scott. He has the right to choose not to answer a question if there's spoilers or anything like that, or stuff he doesn't want to talk about. But you're welcome to ask anything, and he will manage that on the fly. Additionally, if you are new to the podcasts, the Q&As will be bonus episodes like Deep Cuts, and they are not part of the official audiobook, so to speak.
That's too bright. Gosh. This drives me batty. Pam mentioned that I pronounced serpentine and serpentine because in the middle of it, I couldn't remember the right way to say it. I forgot. So I threw down both so A can get one of those called up for me. And then, of course, it should be an SMS and newsletter. As Facebook continues to screw with us and the engagement drops there, as Instagram engagement is cratering everywhere now, I'm on Threads a lot more. I'm barely ever on Twitter. The best place you're going to find to stay in touch with us is that SMS and the newsletter, because we own that, and that will never go away. And then Steve the Iceberg, Ricky Borg, is also cultivating the Discord channel. What'd I say?
Ricky Borg.
Too bad he's already got a nickname.
One of us.
Ricky Borg. Because, so if you use Discord, you want to sign up for that. Hopefully, I will get more involved in that in the near future, but I've been real busy, y'all. I've been real busy. Don't be telling me my business,
Speaking of real
boy.
busy,
Yep.
we have the schedule for all the Sigler Stank stuff on June 17th. June 17th, which was last month, of course, Slay Book 1 went live at audible.com. If you have purchased it and haven't reviewed it, we would love it if you would review it.
Very important. Very important.
If you want to put it in your wish list in case things go on sale, Audible is a great partner of ours, and they may well choose to put this in a sale at some point, and then you can buy it and review it then. Also review it on Amazon. We have had a couple of questions about whether or not this is coming out in print, and I can tell you that is. We are about to talk about that tomorrow afternoon, about when it comes out in print. We have a handful of things that we have to decide on, but I can guarantee you that it is coming out, and I hope it's coming out soon.
All right. And then on Sunday, July 21st, Slay episode 69, Going Down, went live in the feed.
And on Tuesday, July 23rd, which was yesterday.
Yesterday.
Wait, did it go up today, though?
It went up today. It went up today.
We got a little bit discombobulated, and the last episode of Deep Cuts went live today in the feed.
Yeah, that's in the feed. It's also up at scottsigler.com. Comic-Con schedule. I don't know if any of you are going to Comic-Con, but the Comic-Con schedule is... Sorry, I got to cover you up. Boop. This is the Comic-Con schedule right there. I have one event tomorrow, which is right... She's trying to see where that is. Up there. Yeah, I'm like literally 6 months old and she's playing peekaboo and I'm delighted. Thursday, July 25th, which is tomorrow if you're watching this live, Writers Coffee House. That is 2 p.m. at Marina D. Marriott Marquis. And then Friday, 2 events. The Scribe Awards panel. We'll be talking about media tie-in novels. And then at the end, we're going to read off the people who won the awards this year for media tie-in. I am not nominated for anything. And then Friday, late at night, 8 p.m., Villains, Shedding Light in the Darkness is a panel hosted by Dennis Crosby, who is a fiction author, and we will be getting all of that done. So write it down. Okay.
We did get a question today by email, so I'm letting you know if you happen to be in the San Diego area or in California and you wanted to come to Comic-Con, there are no outside Comic-Con events for Sigler fans or the Siglerverse. It is too busy and too many people downtown to manage anything like that, and we're both doing things that are public-facing and not public-facing at the convention, so we will not be able to accommodate a lunch or meet and greet or anything
Unfortunately. Like that. All right, so let's race through the rest of these. Sunday, July 28th is coming up. Tonight's episode goes live in the podcast feed, all edited and polished up with our little trimming process. Wednesday, July 31st, we have a live read of Slay episode 71, Revenge, the end of the book. And of course, the way Slays work, the epilogue episode is just as important as an episode, but the grand finale of the action happens next Wednesday.
And then, as Scott mentioned, on Saturday, August 3rd, is the Junkie Party that Steve Rickyberg hosts. I will be in attendance that night. I try to attend. I haven't been recently, but I will be hanging out for quite a while this coming Saturday night. So if you want, if you haven't been to one where I'm around, you're also welcome to ask questions about the Siglerverse. I often answer a lot of questions about Scott or our day-to-day routine, and all of that is welcome there as well. So I hope to see you on Saturday the 3rd.
Thank you. Ian Seckle says, how could you not be nominated? Alien Phalanx was amazing. Alien Phalanx is out 3 years ago, bro. I just haven't had any media tie-in since then. Quick word count update. Crypt Book 2, I'm at 70,000 words. It is slated for 110,000, which is probably going to be a goddamn lie, and I'll tell you why. Because Slay Book 2 was set up for 90,000 words. What you just heard today, 127,095 words. I still have, without a doubt, there's going to be 5,000 words next week, if not more, and then the epilogue. So at some point, I think it's possible this could wind up being 140,000 words, which is a large percentage higher than 90. I don't do math.
Will you clip this for me?
Oh, yep.
And I think that's it. That's kind of it. We have, I mentioned earlier in this cast, review any review. If you've read a Sigler book, if you're new to the Siglerverse.
Let's go over that. I got something ready for that.
Okay, great.
So you guys can see here. I'm not going to lie. We were hoping for more interaction from you guys with Slay Book 1 over at Audible. If you're an Audible customer at all, buy it and review it. We appreciate that. We really need those 5-star reviews, not just the 5-star rating, but the 5-star review to go with it. That helps us a lot. And we'll explain why. Because here's the Crypt closing in on 1,000 reviews. That is a huge milestone to get to 1,000 reviews on Audible. It means you put on your big boy pants and you get to walk to school. Your mom doesn't have to drop you off. And
uphill both ways.
Yep. And then Mount Fitzroy, which you guys have just fucking crushed at, 4,400 ratings. Fantastic. Obviously, if you've listened to the Crypt at Audible and haven't reviewed it, go do that. Mount Fitzroy, go do the same. And if you haven't bought those things and you listen to Audible stuff, what's wrong with you? Audible, you can buy it a la carte. You don't have to sign up. And then, of course, Earthcore, the thing that keeps bread on the Sigler table.
For sure.
12,560 reviews. Write it down, people. Get your bony asses out to Audible and review our stuff, especially Slay Book 1.
And we're going to talk about this as soon as we start Deep Cuts, just a little bit. But part of the reason that it's so important is the number of reviews helps Audible and Amazon do two things for us. And Audible is a very good partner of ours. They're very good to us. But the numbers still have to be there. So the more reviews there are, the more purchases there are, all that sort of stuff helps trigger the algorithm. So if you liked this, you'll like Scott Sigler's Earthcore. And it helps trigger us getting put in daily deals or sales or things like that. And we are good partners to them as well, but we can't motivate. We can't be like, hey, can you put us in a daily deal? It kind of is motivated by those two things. So we appreciate everyone who helps.
Look at that. Cobalt USA. Oh, shit. I just finished listening to the Audible version of Slay. I'll make my review right after this.
Hey, thanks so much, Cobalt.
Fantastic. I got to get better at this. I say fantastic, and then I type. Actually,
sometimes you block them. So
I block a lot of people.
Yeah, you accidentally block a lot of people.
I'm fantastic. That's all I can manage to get in, for fuck's sake.
It definitely, if you only have time for stars, we would still love that. It helps a whole lot. It's a whole lot more motivating and a whole lot more algorithmic for you to leave a review as well.
If you like me, 5 stars plus write down a review. A couple of sentences all it needs. A paragraph.
Yeah, it needs to be more than
you'll
5
be fine.
points.
Oh, and you know what? While you're there, let's go over here. Slay the man in gray. While you're there, it helps a little bit if you want to do the extra credit, if you want to get the assignment. You go down here and you go sort by most helpful. Oh, no, sort. It doesn't matter. Most relevant, whichever. And then you just go down and anything that's got a 5-star, you want to click helpful. And you click helpful and you click helpful. This also triggers the algorithm. It's a complicated process and no one will actually say what the algorithm is. But every time you click helpful on a 5-star review, a giant centipede gets its many wings.
And for those, there's lots and lots and lots of us who don't always have the money to have an Audible subscription, all that jazz. If you have an Audible account and you can't buy the books right now, you can't continue, or your subscription is inactive, you can still do that. That helpful and non-helpful, and that helps us too. Well, obviously, helpful helps us. So that would be great.
Okay. Now, I think that's it, Peanut. Yep, review counts. So here we go.
I am, we are about to get...
sorry. She's a pro. I'm overstepping my bounds.
I am about to start recording, and then we will roll right into deep
You want to read that?
I mean, timing.
Are you ready to go with the time?
Starting the timer.
Oh, no, it's not. We're not starting yet.
Oh, okay. Time to slash our way into Deep Cuts, the bonus episode podcast we do each week. You can hear these episodes at scottsigler.com or in your podcast feed if you're subscribed on iTunes or Spotify. Wait, they can get it from any podcast
Any
feed,
podcast,
right?
that's correct. We'll edit that.
Which you can do at scottsigler.com/subscribe.
Let me hit record, hit that timer, doll, and check.
Check.
Boom. Let's setting timer, and here we go.
Oh my gosh, that's a long script. That's you?
Okay. You think being an author is just about writing? Think again, pal.
Hey, FDO, let's teach him up. Do your intro thing.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to Deep Cuts, the bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices Fiction Podcast, where a sci-fi author and an audiobook narrator discuss all the hot topics you can find in them all. I'm Scott Sigler, sci-fi horror author known far and wide as the future Dark Overlord.
And I'm A.B. Sigler, audiobook narrator, and on this Deep Cuts, we are chatting about the demands of being a modern-day writer or creator. It's not just about making stuff anymore.
And we're going to cut this part, but I'm going to shut the door. The sound is getting crazy.
Okay.
And go. A reminder that these are bonus episodes, not part of the current story that is running in my feed. Listen if you like. We'd love to have you here with us, but there's nothing in this episode that you need to keep track of the current story.
All right, Mr. Sigler, let's get into it.
Let's go.
So this week we are talking about all the things that a modern day writer, modern day creator has to do to stay relevant and to reach an audience and grow an audience. It is in my lifetime, I think, I'm not sure in everyone's who's listening's lifetime, but in my lifetime, and I'm sure in your lifetime, we knew back in the day, back when I was in high school, if you were a musician, you held concerts and put out albums, physical records, physical cassettes, physical CDs, that kind of thing.
Yep.
If you were an author, you put out physical books.
Correct.
And that was it.
That was your job.
But now, of course, in the
put out physical books and occasionally go out on tour as an author. Very rarely.
Yes. But now in the digital world, there are tree books, there are ebooks, and there are audiobooks. And all of those cater to a different audience and need different care and feeding. So there's that. There's also the whole digital world that exists outside of it. And there are people kind of old dinosaurs like me who still remember the way it used to be and want physical books and book tours and all that sort of stuff. So you have to manage all of that and meet the needs of your publishers and your fans and all of that jazz. So we're going to get into that. I have a handful of questions for you.
Okay, let's go. Let's do it.
First one is, like I just mentioned, it is reasonable to assume that people think writing is just writing. Mm-hmm. But in your case, and in most modern day creators and writers' cases, it's a full-time, for full-time creators anyway, it has many, many, many different silos or buckets.
Yep.
There's writing, of course. That's a very big piece of that pie.
That's the biggest piece.
There's marketing, which some people think once you're a published author, you don't do, somebody does for you. Is that true?
There are authors at a certain level who get to say that, marketing, other people do that for me. I've literally heard that come out of people's mouths. And almost invariably, those people 3 or 4 or 5 years later are no longer saying that, because you have your ascendant, you get signed, you get a book deal, they put books out. You might have an arc where you come up and then you peak, everybody peaks, and then you start to come down, and we start to come down if you haven't established an audience, if you don't know how to market. You're going to have to learn how to do those things very quickly. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Stephen King doesn't have to do shit. J.K. Rowling doesn't have to do anything other than damage her brand here and there. And, there are authors that don't need to do marketing, but then there are some really big names that market constantly, like V.E. Schwab and others.
I'm going to move my chair, you guys. Hang on a sec.
Oh, Brolo in the house.
Hey, Jude. Nice to see you. There are other things. I'm going to lump these together, and then we're going to pull out some of these things and talk about them. There's social media, which he sort of mentioned, but it's a broader thing than just marketing your books. It's a whole bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. Fan interaction, which includes conventions. And then the last thing, if we have time, we'll talk about is time off to recharge your creative batteries. Okay,
let's go.
So let's back up a little bit and talk about the similarities and differences for a modern day author or creator for marketing, social media, and fan interaction. How similar are they?
Well, they're all kind of related. So social media and fan interaction are absolutely marketing. You're talking about the brand experience. Mm-hmm. And many authors and many creators do not want to think of themselves as a brand, but they are a brand. I am a product. You guys are here listening to me because you really like my work, and that's great. And you like our personalities and the way we interact. But I am also a product. I am something that is for sale out in the marketplace. And brand management and customer management are part of this process. caveat, I have a marketing degree. I have a BA in marketing from Clear University. It's my second degree. The first one was for journalism. So I've studied this stuff way back when. But marketing is a process of finding the customers who will like your product, presenting your product in a way where they want to try your product, then they try your product, and then hopefully following up with them to say, did you like that? How was the experience? To make them feel important and listen to that they bought the product. And that's something that A and I are frankly pretty good at. We've been very good at. There's a lot of very awkward authors out there and creators, and we've done a pretty good job at we're so excited that you guys like our work. We're thrilled. We want to hear from you. We want to respond to you. We want to have that interaction. So that means that social media, where most of that interaction happens, and conventions where some of that interaction happens, is all part of the marketing process.
Yeah, and there's two other things that I want to bring up. For social media specifically, I had an interesting thing happen to me in 2024 as a reader. I followed a romance author on social media, on TikTok and Instagram and all that jazz, who I thought her content was fantastic. Her name is Abby Jimenez, and I loved her content about her dogs. She talked all the time about being a writer. She talked all the time about deadlines, things that I hear and deal with every single day in our business. And I watched her dogs for 2.5 years probably, and I loved her content and never once thought to pick up one of her books until she happened to say in a TikTok or an Instagram or whatever, people always say I don't really read romance, which was me.
So you're saying you followed her for her social media content and for who she was online before you even consumed her books?
Absolutely. And in fact, she would intermingle her personal life, her dogs, her daughters, things like that, with the same thing that you do. You do the same thing. You sometimes do 2 Pups, 1 Cup, where you're just talking about your life. And then you say, hey, I have a new book out, or hey, I'm going to be here at this bookstore, things like that. She did exactly the same thing. And it never occurred to me, if I liked who she was on social media, I might like her books because I didn't read romance. And then about 6 months ago, she had a TikTok where she said, I get this question all the time. I don't really read romance. I would love to read your books, but I don't really read romance. Do you do anything other than romance? And her answer was this: I don't know what to tell you other than to give my books a try. If you give my books 5 or 6 chapters and you don't like it, you won't like it. But I've never had anybody give it a try, ask me about it by email, give it a try, and then come back and say they didn't like it. And that is exactly Scott's perspective. He says that all the time.
4 chapters. You got to read as many as 4 chapters. And when you get through those 4 chapters, if you don't like my work after 4 chapters, you're not going to like my work. And that's awesome. That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
And
which is why we give away all our stuff for free so you can try it out.
Yeah. And it took that, me, a bridge publisher myself, who lives and loves it, lives with and loves.
Define bridge publisher, please.
He works for the big 6 or 5 or 4 or Borg or whatever it is now, publisher, and we publish our own books. It took her saying what I hear Scott tell fans all the time to realize I could do the same thing with her books, and it turns out I love her.
Yep.
So I think that's really important. But we're going to get into a little bit of how you manage fitting all those things in together.
Right.
So the first question is, how do shifting deadlines, editor delays, and or rescheduling affect things?
Well, this is the problem that we're in right now, and it's a huge problem for us, is I can meet a deadline, and then I have my next deadline, and usually 3 to 4 deadlines all going kind of at the same time. And I can schedule that out and usually hit the deadline. I used to be famous for if there was a deadline, whatever it fucking took, I was going to meet that deadline. If I don't got to sleep, if I don't got to eat, if I have to stay at the office, it doesn't matter. I was going to meet my deadline. It's not quite like that anymore. We've lost some of that killer edge, so to speak. But what's screwing me now is having multiple deadlines from multiple publishers. There are 3 publishers. There's us, there's Athon, and there's one that I'm not allowed to mention yet at this point. Mm-hmm. And if any of those 3, the editors of any of those 3 get a draft and then hold the draft for too long, of course, as soon as I send a draft, I'm on to the next book and the next deadline. And then I will get an email, 13 weeks later where people have been they've been busy with other stuff too. So they're not being slackers. They come back and go, this is great. We need all these changes. We need this done right away. And now I have to juggle the demands of 3 different publishers all at once and figure out when I'm going to be able to get this work done. And there's 2 important points to make here. Number 1, the work is not 1 week. Mm-hmm. When an editor comes back with something, that is a 6 to 12 week process to finish that draft with all of their notes. I have to do that, and then I have to also juggle that against the other publishers' demands. So it becomes extremely complicated. It is literally the worst goddamn game of Jenga you could ever play in your life. It is a Jenga with real world ramifications and revenue ramifications. So it becomes very complicated. So that is the problem. That is the situation we're in right now.
Yeah. And you may be saying to yourself, well, I mean, can you finish those and just do one at a time? And that is also not really the way things work anymore. Used to be a writer could work with a publisher, signed for multiple books.
Yep.
Back in the day where there was just one format of books, and they may or may not have part of their contract that says you can't write for anyone else, or you can't write a full-length novel for anyone else. Now, all those bets are off because it is rare to continually get advances, or to get large advances anyway, that could sustain you while you go through your creative process. So there isn't a way really to just write one book at a time. You have to be either looking for the next book contract that you're going to write, creating the next concept that you're going to pitch. All those things kind of have to work together. And then when you work with multiple publishers, those things sometimes line up well, and they sometimes do not. And we're just trying to manage that.
And there's a lot of people out there who are dealing with the same situation. You know, you got Chuck Wendig, who is extremely active on social media, and it's a big part of his brand. John Scalzi is writing at his blog. He is a social media whiz kid. Delilah Dawson. There's many authors out there that are dealing with multiple deadlines and are trying to just tread water on social media. Mm-hmm. And they all seem to be doing it better than I'm doing it. So they're great.
How do you fit in activities of daily life?
I don't have a daily life, frankly. And my gorgeous wife and I are trying to figure this out, how we can have more of a daily life. And by daily life, what most people mean is stuff that doesn't involve writing or selling the work that I am writing. I have a very difficult time in that daily life is writing and selling the stuff that I am writing.
Well, I was asking about activities of daily life. How do you fit in the dentist? How do you fit in food shopping? How do you fit in laundry? How do you fit in walking the dogs? How do you fit in all those
I'll
things?
tell you this. Number 1, I got a blood draw this morning because I'm becoming an aged gentleman who has to take proper care of his health. I had a blood draw this morning that has taken me since April to just go to the clinic that is literally 8 minutes from here, sit down for 15 minutes, get a blood draw, and come home. That has been since April. If you're listening to this in the podcast, it is July. It is almost the end of July. It has taken me that long just to get my goddamn blood drawn, and that is my health, man. Yeah.
It's been since February 15th.
Oh my God. Fuck, are you kidding me? Christ. So how do I manage daily life is very difficult. And I've always been this way, and my ADHD is a big part of it, but also my drive to create. I could not have another job. This is what I have to do, period. And it really screws everything else quite a bit. It takes an enormous amount of work for me to make sure I am making time for my marriage and for my family and for my friends, my high school friends, because I don't really have a lot of tight relationships outside of the guys I went to high school with. So it's an enormous amount of work. But the dogs are all right. Mm-hmm. I get up in the morning, get my coffee, take my dogs for a 2-mile walk. I love my buddies. They're the best.
So we have to take a quick commercial break. We will be back after these words from our fantastic sponsors.
Ready?
I am.
And we are back.
the topic we are talking about this week is the demands of being a modern day writer or creator. It's not just about making
You know
stuff
what?
anymore.
That's me. I screwed that up. We're going to do this again. Keep the time where it's at. And we are back. Welcome back to Deep Cuts, the show with all the hot topics you can find out of sight of the food court.
We are chatting about the demands of being a modern day writer or creator. It's not just about making stuff anymore. So back to our questions. We were just talking about how you fit in all the activities of daily life, and your short answer was you don't really do that. And this is important to note. We are a partnership where we both work at this job full-time together. And so a lot of the activities of daily life, like grocery shopping or making lunch and laundry, I can't write a Scott Sigler book, but I can do those things. So when we're really in a crunch time, I pick up a lot more of that stuff. That isn't possible for all creators.
No,
all
it's
creators,
not. It's a good point. That's a very good point.
And even if you have a really supportive spouse, if you have a partner and they're very, very supportive, that doesn't mean they don't have a different job, because that's a huge support too. We have just empty set as our income most of the time, and that means we have to focus on that, and we have to make sure that we're dividing all the things that we have to do to that end. A new question for you.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
What do you think your biggest problem with getting things done is?
Biggest problem with getting things done is I am diagnosed with ADHD. I've always been. If you guys can hear our dogs in this podcast, our dogs are going nuts downstairs, and I'm not there to say, hey, knock it off. No more shenanigans. My biggest problem is it is very easy for me to, number one, get distracted, to number two, go down a rabbit hole of distraction. And this is the bitch. Number three, the actual research I do for the job I love and I have to do can often spiral out of control, and I can be researching a thing for a book, and I'd be researching a thing for a book and go so far down the rabbit hole. Number one, I'm burning a lot of cycles on learning information that doesn't pertain to the book anymore. If you're, let's just say for argument's sake, I am doing a book on a historical time in the North American continent. And let's say that time is the 18th century. I can go find the information that I want in order to write that book, that part of the book, but there's so much richness and majesty and so much detail that I get drawn deeper and deeper. So I wind up burning a lot of time on stuff that somewhere in the back of my head, I know this is not going to go in the book. But there's a part of me that wants to put all of this in the book. And that is the single biggest problem. The two biggest problems with the ADHD part of me are getting distracted by day-to-day things, like what's the current political situation? What's going on? My brother believes in this thing. I believe in this thing. How can I communicate with my family? And number two, actually getting drawn down the rabbit hole for stuff that does pertain to work and not being able to, in the moment, ascertain, like, you've gone, what you need to be in the top 5 percentile. You're now down in the 90th percentile of knowledge. And this is not going to make it to the book.
And that is both of those things, the personal stuff and the research stuff can extend a deadline on his side. And we do what we can to control that. We're actually starting to refocus on that right now because it's a big deal. I'm going to move my chair. Don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage it when a new creative bug bites you? When you are right in the middle of 3 books at once and the best idea you have ever had in your entire life smacks you in the forehead.
Oh, my God. So I will say this also goes back to my ADHD and my interest in things. I have never, ever in my life had writer's block. Not one time, not never. I have the opposite problem, which is a broken fire hose of ideas that is always on, going on all the time. The single biggest challenge in my incredibly lucky, awesome life is every day, every single day, at least once a day, I have an idea where I'm like, this is the best idea I've ever had in my entire life. This is the reason I was born and worked all this time to get to here to have this in my job so I can do this idea. It happens every goddamn day. So it becomes very difficult for me to file those things away and let the molten magma cool off enough, becomes just a boring rock that isn't really all that great. Some of these ideas, I've literally called my agent, pumped up, being like, this is the one, Bird, this is it. This is the one you've been looking for. You want to sell this. And then 3 days later, I'm like, that's really dumb. So it's really hard. It gets in the way.
Absolutely. 1 second. Do that for me.
Okay.
Copy that for me.
Oh, got it.
I have 2 points to add here. One is that having that idea in his head, and this is I think true for all creators. I'm making a guess at that, but I'm pretty sure it's true for all creators. Having that idea, this is the best idea I have ever had. He has to go through the thought process of it, which sometimes takes 5 minutes and sometimes takes 5 hours and sometimes nags him for 5 days before determining whether or not it is actually a viable product. And that is, or a viable idea that is going to result in a whole book or a whole idea or a whole project or concept. There is no way around that. There is no ability, which we all as humans have this instinct, like, you know what, I'm just going to walk right out I'm just going to cross the street right in the middle here. And there's a part of you that does this automatic, like, whoop, that's not a good idea. It's a very heavy traffic street. He doesn't have that instinct. That isn't how that creativity works. He has to think it through. That's one thing. Another thing is not all ideas are great at that moment. And it's hard to remove the momentum once you have it. So for me, who isn't creative in this regard, I would like him to finish his creative ideas that he currently has before he starts any new creative ideas. But that is simply not the way the cookie crumbles. That is not how that works at all.
Excuse me.
And to that end, I think that sometimes when you come up against anybody else, in our case, we run this business together. He does the creative stuff and the social media and a good amount of the marketing, and I do everything else. And we actually just had this conversation today where he said, hey, we really have to talk about this one thing. And I know you kind of always poo-poo this one thing. And I have to be like, oh, well, I can't tell you that's not true. That is obviously true, but I'm not exactly poo-pooing it as much as I don't have time to see straight, and neither do you.
Right.
And from my perspective, we don't have time to see straight for the next 6 years. And from your perspective, we could probably do this sometime in the next 3 days. And those are real things that we just have to deal with. And we are much better than we used to be about it. We used to have knockdown, drag-out fights about it, and now we kind of both admit we don't always see what the other person sees, and we kind of meet in the middle.
So we are doing this live. If you're listening to the podcast, we do this live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we do a live read of new fiction, and then we talk about a topic or a subject. So we have people in the live chat room giving us questions. And Oren Maletta just said,
hey, Oren.
I work with teenagers. Having them work out their, quote, amazing ideas, end quote, is good advice. And frankly, Oren, that I am basically still a hyperactive, I think 15. I'm a hyperactive 15-year-old in a grown-ass man's body, but the brain is still the same. Everything is the most important fucking thing I've ever done every day, every minute.
And that's a really good point, because this is muscle memory. You have to work at it. It is not instinctive to say, for me, for example, if he comes up with the best idea he's ever, I think right now, I'm not going to ask you what it is, but I think right now the idea he thinks is the biggest blockbuster, best-selling idea that he has is one I hope he never ever writes, because I just don't see it. And the thing that I want him to write next is assuredly not the thing he's writing once he finishes these deadlines. And I want it more than everything else, but I can't convince him that it is the most exciting idea he's ever had. And that's just the way it is, because we're different humans and we have different brains and we have different creativities and we like different things. Yeah, and that's just how it works.
You're the business mind. You're the analytical, like, we need to make product and put product in the store so we can sell things and make money. And I have that mind. It's just it's a very small part of the Venn diagram. My brain is always like, this is how we get rich quick. I'm a get rich quick author all the time.
But what I'm specifically talking about is us as consumers of creativity.
Okay.
The thing you think is absolutely going to sell every single person who's a fan of your work or not a fan of your work is a thing that I don't think
Got
I
it.
ever need to read. And I think the thing I want to read is something you don't think is as important.
Okay.
So this is a little bit of a shift because we've kind of talked about some of these things already. But one question that has come up a handful of times for me, because people email me, is why don't you ask friends or fans or family to help with projects or to be beta readers or that kind of thing?
Well, let's start with beta readers. In case there's any authors still listening to this podcast, family as beta readers is one of the dumbest fucking ideas on the face of the planet, because it's difficult to find a family member who will sit down and read this passion project that you have poured your heart into and this goal of yours in your whole life, and to find someone in your family who will say, Bubba, I appreciate that you're working real hard at this. This is horrible. I'm not interested. I skimmed over it. It's terrible. So family members as beta readers is difficult. If you get beta readers, they have to be people who will give you hard truth, and you need a lot of them. Asking if family can get involved in the business. To be frank, we have tried to hire people in our family. We've hired nephews. We've hired nieces to give them a huge opportunity. Like, this is a very simple job that you have to do. You have to do these 4 things. You have to do them every week. And it's not hard, but it's not their passion and they're not interested. Mm-hmm. So as young adults, as teenagers, they blew it. And we had to have big talks about the fact that they weren't doing the job at all. And when you come to grown family members, they have their own jobs. They have their own lives. And they are not involved in what you do. They may encourage you, which is great, and read it and enjoy it. But everybody's busy, bro. It's not just authors. Everyone is swamped all the time. That's the modern world.
And even if you have people you know to be adult and responsible, and they really, really want to help you, if there's no accountability there, if they are not always at risk at losing their job, even if they're close family members, which has happened for both of us, part of that issue is most of the time they don't know what it takes to do this job right. So they're saying, sure, I'll help you out. Yeah, pay me, that would be great. But they are not taking it seriously as the job. Some of them didn't even have jobs, and they're still not taking it seriously because they don't see the need the same way we see the need. So if you can avoid that as a creator, that would be our suggestion. We did have another question from the chat room from Pam. She asked, do we find that in the digital world, everything has to move faster? And I'm going to add a B question to that. Do you also think that the bigger the digital world grows, the more there is to do?
The last thing you said is the most important thing. The bigger the digital world grows, the more there is to do. And this is not something that's going to go away. There is a thing called the Fediverse. And the Fediverse, if I'm pronouncing it right, means I could post something on, say, Threads that will then show up on Mastodon, show up on Twitter, show up on all the other places. A coagulator like that would be a wonderful thing. But yes, more and more, the digital world is always fracturing, becoming wider. There's always more to do. So she is correct. The more the digital world exists, the more that you have to do. Did I answer her question, or was there another part of it?
I think so. Do you find that the digital world has everything moving faster was specifically her question.
One of the part of the reason I'm here talking to you right now, that you can listen, is because when podcasts first came around way back in the aughts, I was one of the people to see its potential first. And that potential was the speed to market of a creator making something, putting it online, getting consumers to buy into that thing, and then be ready for the next round far before publishers ever saw any of this shit. So yes, the speed of the internet is the reason I have this career, and it has only gotten faster since then. Speed of the internet has increased. Attention span has decreased. So those two things together has created an endless demand.
I'll add 2 things to that from my side of the aisle. One is the amount of things we have to learn about and defend ourselves from the internet grows every day. And I say defend, and that's a little bit of a harsh word, but as they should, more opportunity, the more that opportunity presents itself on the internet, and I'm just speaking about actual legitimate opportunity, not people scraping our stuff and selling it themselves, which we also have to manage. The more opportunity that presents itself, the more entrepreneurs will say, oh man, I can help you with this. And they will reach out every single way they can. They will look up our business license and call that phone number, which happens to be mine because we're a two-person business. They will email 80 times in a day. They will DM you on every single thing you have and try and make you believe that you absolutely need their services, even though we're a two-person business. And it runs the gamut from editing, which is relevant to our business, to janitorial services, which I answer daily, even though we don't have an office and we have two people who work for us. That's one thing. The other thing is there are quite a lot of people who see what you're doing, love what you're doing, and want to collaborate with you. And that is you still have to evaluate all of those things. And I find it's weird because the opportunities of the internet are vast, and the time it takes to weed out real opportunities that serve you from opportunities that sound good but don't also is vast.
David Lamb asked a question, and I think this will be a topic for an entirely different episode of Deep Cuts. So to tease you guys, David Lamb asked, in hindsight, would you have done anything different in how you marketed yourself when you began podcasting? And that is a much deeper question. So Dave, we're going to save that for an entire episode all to itself. What other questions we got?
We just have one more, but will you copy this for me?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We have one more because I think it's going to take us till the end of our time.
Okay.
How do you balance everything you need to balance?
Well, the honest answer is, like a lot of entrepreneurs, like a lot of creators, the balance is that the scale is tipped so heavily to the work side that the other side, be that personal life, be that family life, be that obligations, is so high in the air that it gets almost no attention at all. Mm-hmm. So I've been in this game as a full-time creator for going on 20 years now.
Going on 30 years now.
30 years as a full-timer?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, it is only the wisdom of the years and the time passing in which I finally accepted that all the things, all the people I studied told me, which was, you can't work all the time. You got to pay attention to family. You got to pay attention to your life. You got to take time for yourself, which I dismissed as, well, I guess you're just not that, you're not that fucking committed. You're not that strong. You're not a fucking warrior. You're not willing to go to the extra mile. And now, as I get long in the tooth and gray in the hair, whichever hair I have left, is I start to see like the myth of the work-life balance for an independent creator is going to always be there. When you're young, dumb, and ready to go, you believe you're going to be able to do it different than everybody else did it. And when you are young and dumb, you can do it different because you can commit your whole life to this process. I have an advantage. We didn't have kids. That's a huge factor. Yeah. But at the same time, you can achieve a certain level of success and consistency and reliability because you are robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing I'll say about this to sum it up. In order to do what I have done and what a lot of successful creators have done, I would wager every single successful creator ever has robbed Peter to pay Paul. Yeah. And eventually the bill comes due from Paul, and hopefully you are paying enough attention to Paul that your life doesn't completely fall apart because you weren't there for Paul at all.
So to that end, the question was, how do you balance all the things? And the answer is you don't. And part of what Scott's saying that is relevant here is when you're first starting out as a creator or a creative, you just have less life to manage. And while you said that you had an advantage, a creative advantage, because we don't have children, I do also believe that creators who have been creative their entire lives and then have children, they get this lesson a little earlier in their career. There is no option but to balance your work and your life. And if you choose not to do this, you will lose one or the other. And so while that has been a benefit in a lot of ways, that can also be a detriment if we never had to stop and figure out who was going to do the recitals and the sports and all that.
Correct.
And so that, I think, is something that cuts both ways, I think.
Yep. And we also have, I've got some nephews and some nieces. And being a couple without children ourselves, hopefully what we're planning to do is, like, as we get older, start to put our life, square away our life, be like, hey, you know what? Now we would like to spend more time with family. We've got our ducks in a row. We've got our nest egg. We're doing good. Hopefully it'll be a bigger part of that life. But that will also, even though those aren't our biological children, it will take time and adjustment to make time to be there for these little human beings who need people to be there.
And I think for me, I am not a creative, as I've said. I'm a creative adjacent. I'm good at the logistics of helping creatives, but that does not mean that I don't that I have a great work-life balance either. That I don't need to work on that as well. So what I will say is, I think anything worth doing, being an author, being a creative adjacent or a logistician, being a homemaker, whatever it is, if it's worth doing to you, it takes work to do.
Yeah.
It takes work and practice and sacrifice to do. And so when the time comes that we want to be, it's time for us to be more involved in our family, to be more involved in whatever. And that has happened already with our families and our parents and stuff like that. When that happens, it takes work to commit to doing it because it feels like you're never going to have enough time. You're never going to put out every fire. You're never going to write every book. You're never going to do all those things. And the reason it feels that way is because that's true. You are never going to do all the things. You have to decide what things are important to you.
Yeah. It's always triage. It's literally always triage. That is it for this episode of Deep Cuts. Next episode, babe, I think we're talking about this right here.
Yeah, next episode, we're going to talk about David Lamb in the Facebook chat room tonight. Said, in hindsight, would you have done anything different in how you marketed yourself when you began podcasting? Scott began podcasting in 2005, so lots have changed since then.
So thank you for joining us. And I will say, of course, I got to go right at the end. All you guys watching this, no, I'm not Snoop Dogg. I did not just take a big giant bong toke, as you can see. A's going to cut all of this. This is the bonus you get from watching us live. You get to watch all the fuck ups. I will say thank you for joining us. And I will say you all smell an awful lot like flowers.
Bye.